Welcome back to the channel. I'm here at Larry H. Miller Ford in Provo, and they have this 2022 Ford F350, and I figured while I was here I might as well go ahead and do a comparison with my GMC. Now I know this is a 2023 GMC 2022 and it's used, however this is still a good comparison because they're both 1 tons, and we're going to go over the payload numbers and some of the towing features to see which truck is a better buy. Let's get started. If you would like to buy this Ford F350, be sure to ask for Johnny P. Now let's go ahead and jump into it. This is going to be a lower trim level, but it doesn't really matter because the Lariat and this one being a Lariat Ultimate pretty much puts it up there with my truck. Now I have an off-road design truck. The one that you would have to choose in order to compete with this would be the Trimmer, but the Trimmer is going to be a lot better truck because they do a lot more to it to really differentiate it from the other trim levels. You could pretty much clearly see that this is basically just an appearance package. Now on this Ford Lariat, when you get the Ultimate, you do get the LED headlights, which is an option, and I really do like the overall design. The output for the low beams are ridiculous on this truck. Not a huge fan of the fog lights though, although they do put out a lot of light in front of you, and it's about the same as what these are. But tow hooks up front, and this one does have the optional Power Stroke diesel. Let's pop the hood to see what kind of power this thing has and kind of go over some of the other powertrain features. Now, as far as displacement goes, this is going to be a 6.7 liter. It's going to have 475 horsepower, 1,050 pound-feet of torque. This is a beast of an engine. I've towed with it and I've driven it, unloaded quite a bit, and it's really a good powertrain. The 10-speed transmission is pretty much like perfect, pretty much, with the exception of the downshifts, but we won't go there in this video. Now, I know that a lot of people have said that these transmissions are not co-developed, but they are essentially the same transmission. Now, in the half tons, they're, I think, pretty much identical. Now, this 10-speed does have deeper gears, so first, second, and third gear do give you a little bit more of that power that you need down low compared to the GMC, but what really makes this truck shine is you do have the availability to get a numerically higher axle ratio out back if you do climb grades. Now, whether that's needed or not is up for debate. Now, I will say, as I mentioned, the gears in this transmission are super deep. So the need of a lower gearing or higher numerical axle ratio out back is probably not needed. But let's go ahead and take a look at the GMC and see what kind of power this thing has. The way that GM came in 2017 was probably on another level. This thing has 445 horsepower, 910 pound-feet of torque. So obviously the Ford just beats it in every category. It does have that 10-speed transmission, and as I mentioned, they're pretty much the same transmission. I think the bell housing is different. I can't remember. Maybe if I remember, I'll put in the video for you guys. Now, the 10-speed is basically a stamped of approved Allison, although I will say this transmission is a little bit more responsive than the Ford's. I will have to drive another Ford to confirm that, so stay tuned for that. But for what I can tell you right now, the transmission in this truck is pretty responsive, and I'll go over in the video what I mean by that. I probably might do it before I post this video, but out back, GM only allows you to have a 342 rear, and that's if you get a dually or anything. There is no availability to get lower gearing out back, but that's okay because having that 10-speed transmission, it really does keep you in the broadband. So the use of one is, again, still up for debate. Someone would have to go up the same grade with a Ford and basically see if there's any difference. Obviously with the higher gearing out back, you're going to get a little bit better fuel economy. So this has a 331 standard. This one would be a little bit higher numerically, so you could land a little bit better fuel economy with the Ford over the GMC. Now, not everybody needs a diesel engine, right? So what are the options, or what are the standard engines? This is going to have a 6.2 liter V8 gas standard. It's going to be made to a 10-speed transmission if you get the 1-ton F350. If you were to look at a GMC, the standard engine is going to be a 6.6 liter gas. Now this has more displacement, and I think this is a better option if you're comparing gas engines. However, Ford does offer a 7.3 liter that's a stout V8 and is really built for really extreme duty. So if you do tow heavy, I think that would be the best way to go. And it does make this 6.6 liter not even enter conversations, unfortunately, and it's mainly because it has a 6-speed transmission. All this needs is a 10-speed, which they are giving it for next year. So hopefully I get a chance to drive one and maybe even tow with it. Now obviously we can discuss styling, but styling doesn't really matter because it really depends on what you like better. I would venture to say which one looks tougher, and I'm going to leave that for the comment section. In the comment section, which HD Super Duty looks tougher? I got my money on, it's not because it's my truck, but clearance lights make a HD Super Duty look like an actual big truck. I'm sorry, I prefer to have clearance lights. Now you can obviously get them on the Ford, but in the comment section let me know which one you think looks a little bit tougher. Now let's talk about the mirrors. Obviously, if you plan on towing with these beasts, the mirrors are going to be extremely important. One thing I like about Ford is they do allow you to extend these automatically, and you can close them. Now this is a lower trim level, so you do have a lot of cool features. Now I did not mention yet, but this one does have a panoramic sunroof. So if you're going out and you're towing, and let's just say it's 7-8 o'clock at night and you want to see the sky, well, they give you a panoramic view inside of the truck. So that's obviously important for towing, in my opinion, especially when I tow full time. On the GM side of things, they pretty much have the exact same functions, so you can power extend them out. The only thing I like about the Ford better is you can actually fine tune it, so you only can push these in or out. On the Fords, you can tap them to get them perfectly tuned for how you want it. Now, as far as power closing them, they still have, like I said, they have those functions. And the one thing I like about the GM is they do give you these cool lights for helping you back up at night, and these really do come in handy. They also have lights on the front of the mirrors too. Ford does have the lights on the front of the mirrors. However, they do not have reverse lights for backing up your trailer. That's something that they did not add, and I would venture to say that that is something that's going to be important if you are in the market, especially if you are like me and you're a procrastinator, and when it's time to go someplace, you go late and then you get there late and then it's dark outside. Yeah, it definitely does make a difference having those reverse lights. Now let's talk about front axles. As you guys know, Ford does have a solid front axle compared to GM's independent front suspension. What are the trade-offs? In my opinion, this is the best riding HD truck I've ever driven in. And now that I own it full time, it's just getting better and better. However, one thing I will say is I do prefer a solid front axle on an HD truck. I think that it does help overall stability. I can't explain it. It's just something that I've been able to feel going down the road so far that I've owned this truck. I've towed my trailer 2 or 3 times now. I have a 40-foot fifth wheel, and I just like the overall stability that the Ram and the Ford have with that solid front axle. So my opinion is that's what I would prefer to have. I do like the fact that both of these manufacturers give you really good tires from the factory. So these are going to be the Goodyear Wranglers, and the same thing goes on the Ford. I think Ford also offers a Michelin tire too. This does have the FX4, so it's going to give you an off-road tire. Now let's talk about the rear suspension. Now as far as the Ford goes, you do have 4 leafs in the main pack. You can see right there. You also have 1 overload leaf spring. This is a pretty good suspension overall. However, if you're going by appearance, this GM is going to have 5 leaves in the main pack, and it's going to have 2 overload leaf springs. Now I have noticed, like from other videos I've done, Fords tend to squat the most overall, and sometimes with the GMs it looks more deceiving because there's not as much rake on this truck up front, so you don't have that higher rear as much as you do in comparison on the GMs basically. But overall, if you're looking at the appearance of the suspensions, I think that GM wins this because you have 2 more overload leaf springs, and then you have an additional leaf in the main pack too. Now this is where I think Ford just likes to brag. So they give you a class 5 receiving hitch. However, this opening is going to be a 3-inch opening on the GM side of the house. It's also a class 5 receiving hitch. However, it's just a 2.5-inch opening, and you can clearly see the size difference of this too. I mean, this thing is massive, and it's going to have class leading capacities on this hitch too. So Ford and GM are going to be first and second place with their beds, because Ford's bed is a little bit smaller than GM's. However, it's nevertheless bigger than Ram's. So I think this is like 6.75 inches, 6.8, and this is like 6.9, so it's a little bit bigger. The one thing I do like about the GM though is they did move the fifth wheel prep package behind the axle. So you do have a little bit longer bed, number one, but number two, this prep package being behind the axle allows for a little bit more clearance if you do plan on towing a fifth wheel with this shorter bed. Now, I will say, because the Ford has a longer bed, it's not too far behind the GM. So either way you go, I think both of these trucks will suffice if you are looking to tow with a fifth wheel. I will say though, it depends on the cap design of your fifth wheel, which will allow you to make that 90-degree turn. Now, as far as the information goes inside, both of these trucks are equally bad with the exhaust brake. So as you guys know, I've done a lot of videos on these trucks, and I personally think that Ford and GM have some work to do in this department. So if you would like to turn on the exhaust brake, it would be up top here. Your trailer brake is in a pretty good spot here. And you do have tow haul mode within your driving modes up here. They do not have the key for this truck, unfortunately. I was having them look for it, but they could not find it. But the door was open, which was nice. Now, as far as the interior design goes, this is also going to be circumstantial. Like, it depends on what you like better. I will say, with this one having a larger screen, it does have a little bit more appeal. But one thing I like about the Ford is you have that panoramic sunroof. So this being a lower trim level, I would venture to say this truck is a little bit better. You also have power steps down below, and you have a power telescoping steer column. And this being this 12-inch display is so massive, and it looks great in here. And these seats are softer versus my GMC, but I don't mind the stiffer seat, I guess. I guess in the Ram, the seats were a little bit stiffer than this too. But the seats, if you like stiffer, if you like a stiffer mattress in your house, like I like a stiffer mattress, my wife and I. So we actually don't mind these seats. But if you like a softer mattress, you might find this truck a little bit more comfortable. But yeah, this is just a really nice cabin. I mean, even for this being outdated, I mean, they redesigned this truck back in 2017 and they refreshed it. Although they skipped out on the interior, they refreshed it in 2020. But I would venture to say, with this truck having all the heated and cooled seats and all the other amenities that it has, this is a good option for most people. Out back, this one does have the outboard heated seats, tons of power plugs. Well, not tons, but it has an adequate enough for most people. And the storage below the seat is pretty good too. Now that I've had this GMC truck for a while now, I don't mind this cabin as much as I thought I would. It's, like I said, I don't have to keep saying it. It definitely is not up to par. But I do like the ergonomics. It's so easy to use. You have hard buttons for your heated and cool seats like you saw in the Ford. They both had push button start, although I will say Ford was using a key up until this point. Now, as far as the tow haul mode goes, tow haul mode is going to be right here. The exhaust brake's right there, and I do like the placement better with the trailer brake. Ford's is kind of like down here, and I just like that you can see it a little bit better, and it's easier to find without having to take your eyes off the road. Now, something I like about this truck a little bit better is you do have heads-up display, and as I mentioned, I just think that this cab feels just a tad bigger overall. But let's go ahead and look at the numbers on the door, because that's going to effectively end the video here. And let's just say I have not looked at the numbers for the Ford yet, so I don't know what they're going to be. One thing that GM does the best is they give you all the numbers right here on the door. So your gross vehicle weight rating, which most have that, but the gross combined weight rating you never see on the door. The curb weight you don't normally see, and all the towing numbers. So for your conventional, for your gooseneck, it's all right here. So I don't have to go online and look this stuff up. So the front gross axle weight rating is going to be 5,600 pounds. The rear is 7,250 pounds. And the payload is 3,782 pounds. So let's go ahead and take a look at the numbers for the Ford. So here's the numbers for the Ford. The front gross axle weight rating is going to be a little bit lower at 5,200 pounds versus 5,600 pounds. And the rear is going to be 7,230 pounds versus 7,250 pounds. So it's a little bit lower for the axles. And the GVWR is a little bit lower at 11,500. Mine has 12.1. However, I think if you get a higher trim level Ford, or if you get the high capacity trailer or something, I can't remember the packages that they have, this might get raised to like 12,000 pounds. But this truck has pretty good payload capacity despite it having the sunroof, the leather seats, a few other things. It is missing the fifth wheel prep package and spray and bed liner. It does have an aftermarket BMW turnover ball, as you probably saw in the bed. But overall, 3,508 pounds of payload is pretty darn good for a pickup truck. But overall, I hope you guys like this video. As I said, I want to do it really quickly. Special shout out to Larry H. Miller here in Provo. So if you are looking for a Ford, I just ordered one from these guys. Be sure to check them out. Ask for Johnny P, and I'll see you guys soon. I bet you guys thought I forgot about these steps. I did not forget about the steps. I just figured I wouldn't mention it now because, you know, Ford is already using that for 2023. But if you're looking at 2022 and 2023 GMCs, yes, you have these steps, which is advantage when you're hooking up your gooseneck coupler. See you in the next video.